Hello, everyone. This is episode number 39. Wow, it's a big number, 39, of Endless.
Yeah, I can't even count that high.
Yeah, well, I mean, I suppose if you only use all your fingers and toes, you can only get to 20, but yeah, 39 can't get to there.
Or you could be in my position, who has less than that, so I can't even get to 20.
Oh, well, yeah, that would make it harder, wouldn't it?
I am kidding. I have all my appendages.
All your phalanges, as they're called. Underused word. Anyway, so we're here for number 39 of Endless Conversation Loop, the newer than not name of this podcast. And also, I mean, I didn't even put this into my notes, but I think we should have a minor round of applause, because remember, I made this comment in some previous episode a while back, but like, numbers are weird. So even though this may be 39, since we started with you on 30, this means this is your 10th episode of the show. How does that make you feel?
Impressed, honestly, because I didn't think I'd last this long. I thought you regretted about 5 episodes in.
No, I'm the kind of person who sticks things out. I've got that stick-to-itiveness, that persistence that they talk about.
Duly noted. That means I gotta try harder.
Well, I mean, we'll have to see. 10 is a pretty big milestone. So, you know, once we start getting to like 20, 25, like, maybe we got to start seeing, like, we start doing the performance reviews on each other, as they say.
Well, I mean, if we're going to get to milestones, I actually have a very fun topic I'd like to do for episode 25 together, but we'll get to that bridge in about 15 weeks.
Yeah, well, actually, since we do 2-week increments, it's probably going to be 30 weeks, so it's going to be either pretty close to the end of the year or the start of next year, I think.
But hey, that'll be fun, though.
Yes. And today is your big topic day, which means, like, so this is kind of the way that I've been trying to do this, is it's like, whoever has the big topic gets most of the time, and then, like, they can have a little sort of, like, mini topic if it's just something they want to, like, you know, little things they want to discuss. So, of course, since we are also 20 days out from the launch of a certain handheld game system, I've been trying to keep up with all the stuff that's going on with it. And today I wanted to talk about the recent controversy about a certain change to the end user license agreement. And before we get any further in talking about this, I want to be clear. I'm not going to make the argument, it's like, wow, this change that I'm about to talk about is fine. It's not a big deal. That's not it. No. I just want to make sure we're being accurate with these kinds of things. Because I think there's this tendency on this place, you might have heard of it, called the internet, to just talk about, like...
You mean where we are?
Yeah, well, I mean, that is where we are. But it's like, we just talk about the relevant thing, or like the new thing. We don't talk about the whole thing, right? Mm-hmm. Causes some problems, because it makes people be outraged at, like, just a little tiny thing, instead of seeing the whole picture. So what am I talking about here? A couple of weeks ago, well, actually a few days ago, what am I saying? On the 12th, or actually, no, what am I saying? This is a couple of weeks ago. Anyway, point is, the end user license agreement for the Switch has been updated. And, you know, it had some of your, like, typical, normal, like, oh, we're changing the legalese bits in it. But, like, the big thing that people were upset about is this particular quote in here. So any unlicensed use of your system, so that's like, basically, if you're modifying your system, if you're hacking it, if you're doing, like, the things that, you know, it's not intended to be used for, in this new agreement, it can cause Nintendo to, quote, render account services and or the device permanently unusable in whole or in part. And like I said at the opening here, I don't like that. I think that's a bad thing. I think it's a major overreaction. Like, I totally get why they would not want you, like, hacking your system and using it for, like, in ways that you're not supposed to for, like, piracy reasons. But I think perhaps making your system that you paid $450 into a brick is maybe going a little overboard. Fair?
So I want to kind of interject here just to kind of get my thoughts on this. This change kind of is making me not want to go get a Switch 2, if I'm being completely honest.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there are other reasons, and I'll get into those later. But this feels, to pull a Brennan Lee Mulligan on this entire podcast, this is a very anti-capitalist move, in my opinion. And what I mean by that is it's basically punishing people who have bought a product, who have essentially the same rights to do whatever they want to do with it, so to speak. Now, I'm not going to go out of here and be, pro-piracy or anything like that. That's not what I'm trying to get at here. The best way that I can kind of equate it to is, let's say that you buy a car, right? And you drive it off the lot. Let's say you're not happy with the paint on it. Maybe because it was the only car paint style available at that dealership. You got the exact car you wanted, but they decided, it's going to be this, for lack of a better idea, let's say it was periwinkle. Just a random color that, would never be a normal car color. And now let's say that instead of that, you wanted black. But the dealership says that you can't make modifications and that they can just basically stall your car out for making that modification. That's kind of the equivalent that I have with it, where I don't think it is right for them to be able to say, we're going to brick your system because of X, Y, Z reasons. And some of it can be valid. I won't argue it can't. But I also think that this points out to a larger problem with Nintendo as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
And it really sucks as someone who grew up with Nintendo and absolutely loves a lot of the old stuff. Basically everything Switch onward is already, good by my account. The problem is that if they are being allowed by consumers to say, hey, we're okay with this, that opens a door that I don't think consumers in general realize will be pushing toward. We're going to be seeing the situation go across all systems. They will make the arguments that they can do this whenever. And the problem I have with it is it's if you're not going to re-release a game, or if people find ways to fix your games that you clearly didn't, that's on you as a company, not on them for fixing a problem that was clearly relevant. When people were able to fix Scarlet and Violet and actually get it to run properly how it should have been, when they decided that they were going to jailbreak their Switches or their games or whatever it was. I forget exactly how. And they were able to make Scarlet and Violet much more playable and enjoyable, no less. So Nintendo is basically saying we don't want you to fix our problems, we just want you to pay for them and then deal with it, is how I'm seeing it. And I don't think that part is right. I think as a company, you have to be aware of what your consumers want at all times. And when the Switch 2 got announced, there were definitely a lot of things that were oh, absolutely, that sounds cool. But then there was also now the recent thing where they were talking about how the games are now not even physical games, they're keys.
Some games are. And that's a lot of third parties, and that's a big problem.
And this is the first time I had ever heard about that personally, where a game isn't even on the thing that we're paying for. So you're telling me on a Switch 2, we are paying for a physical game in our hands that is effectively not a game. It is just plastic.
Well, and see, this is why it's in this kind of conversation, because these are very parallel conversations, because that's very similar to what a lot of disc games on systems are now, where it might be we have a few gigabytes of stuff on here, but you have to download hundreds of gigabytes worth of stuff. So it's the game effectively isn't on the disc. They're basically the same thing. And that doesn't make the key cards good. That doesn't make the discs good. It's just kind of the reality that it's well, that's what it is, and that's been an issue for years. So kind of also building on that too, and why it's we need to look at this for what it is and not just what we happen to see right now. Because that's the same thing exists in the PlayStation 5 agreement too. It's in Section 2. There's you can't lease, rent, blah, 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 adapt, reverse engineer, all that kind of stuff that like we're talking about here. And then down in section 6, it says like Sony can take any action to protect its interests, like disabling access or use of some or all of the system software, disabling the use of the system online or offline, all that kind of stuff. So this is just a problem in general with the end user license agreement. This is not a distinctly Switch problem, PlayStation problem, Xbox problem. It's a problem that we've kind of got industry-wide, and God, it's annoying. But it's part of this landscape we're in 2025.
And I think that's something that needs to be fully addressed across a lot of the board here. And that's a topic for a much different day. The point is that I do not feel good about all these things where it's like, the best way I can describe it is there's a GIF from SNL that illustrates my feelings on the whole thing perfectly, of Chris Farley in like this really nice restaurant, and he starts with this like really wide happy smile, and then as it continues on, like you like in the actual scene, you hear like his whole thought process, and it's getting worse and worse and worse, and you see it on his face where the smile just eventually fades and it becomes anger. That's how I feel right now about the Switch 2. High excitement at the beginning, and then it just becomes like every new thing it feels like that comes out about it, it makes me want it less and less and less, to the point of I do not want to go get this anymore.
See, where I disagree with it is I think it's just kind of a problem of all of console gaming. Like, I completely see what you're saying, but it's just like, it's a lot of the cesspool of the industry. It's not like distinct. I mean, there's certainly things that I think are fair to say are distinct to one product over the other, but a lot of these problems I see are like very like, this happens all over the place, and we're kind of in this problem of like, you know, how do we solve it beyond there being like a whole economic wide boycott, and I don't know that that's realistic to have happen.
But this is what I'm kind of getting at here when it comes to the whole front of it now, is if Nintendo has to be made the example on this all, so be it. Like, yes, Nintendo will probably be able to be fine financially on this. But, like, this was the first year where I actively thought that this was going to be Nintendo's favor, where they finally get out of that really good system to really bad system, and it keep bouncing back and forth on that. And now we're still in this same situation with the Switch 2. So, my hope is that enough people will start with by telling them, like, no, we're not getting this. Because, you know, and there's obviously a multitude of reasons. Maybe it's too expensive. Maybe the whole game keys thing. Like, there are a lot of things that it can be. But if Nintendo has to be made the example of in order to get a point across, so be it. The gaming industry we've talked about a few times already on the show since I've been on. And it is frustrating when we actively are sitting there and there's this acceptance to certain elements of it which we desperately need to not be. My thought is like, I think we're going to find out by holiday time, like by Christmas, by Black Friday, like that time period, when we will finally start to see, like, where will Nintendo go on the Switch 2? Will they backpedal on some of this stuff? Will they actively say, okay, we may have acted a little irrationally on, you know, XYZ, and, you know, even if they say something along the lines of, like, the games will be put on the disc, it will no longer be a key system, we will be re-releasing new versions to actually illustrate that point and whatnot. But that also doesn't guarantee anything, and I think that is a very big deal by comparison. So what I'm hoping is Nintendo listens to consumers, and consumers are smart enough to know that you are the guys that need to be in charge of change. Because if we let them, as companies, do whatever they want, that's how we get into these really dumb cycles of really stupid ideas. Like, everything needs to be a live service game. Everything needs a battle pass. Like, they're too busy being about 2 to 5 years behind the trend that they think the trend is still happening.
Right.
And they're not at the point of, we need to fix this current problem and thinking future tense, like, we will be fixing this. We will not be doing this because that is bad for our consumers. But if you're going to let the companies keep doing it, you have no one else to blame but yourself. And that is a hill I will die on when it comes to it. Like, I have become much more, like, very supportive of indie developers and titles and all that stuff. If I can buy physical, cool. But if I can at least support that team, so be it. Like, I am still desperately looking to find a physical PS5 copy of Expedition 33 because everyone and their mother has been playing it. And I would absolutely support that developer 100 times over if it means that they're going to give me that kind of quality with that kind of game. And Nintendo, if they're going to actively drag their feet or they're going to start following trends that other companies have definitely started, like you brought up, I need to throw my money elsewhere then. I have very specific standards that I would like to be met as a consumer, and it is in my freedom to actively choose who I'm going to spend my money on. And if they don't want to meet my needs, they don't need to meet my money then, if that makes sense.
Well, right. And like I said, I think that's a fair standard. I just think there's like two. That's the problem, is we have like a very divergent issue of like the, like us, we're part of the gamers, quote unquote, right? Whereas then you get into the, the casuals in a very similar sense. And it's like, they might not know, they might not care. And so it's like, as long as, you have like I look at the game list of like stuff that's confirmed to be a key card. There isn't a single first party game on there. So it's like, are you being quote unquote impure if you buy Mario Kart? No, Mario Kart's on the cart. If you buy Madden, well, that's going to be one of those key cards. But like, that's a game that's bought by so many people that it's like, even if you have all the, hardcore players refuse to get it, well, it really doesn't matter anyway, because there's so many more sports fans that like it ends up being permissive. And to your point too, there, like, in general, the industry is again in this weird bind of like, I think most people, like if we were to do a poll on this, right, and we were to ask, 10,000 random people, when you buy a physical game, do you expect to have all the content, with the exclusions of like necessary updates and downloadable content, like stuff that's explicitly labeled that way on your disc or your cartridge? I guarantee the vast majority of people would say, yes, I expect that, and I think that's reasonable. Even though they're also in this place where that just doesn't happen, and they're experiencing that not happen, and they might not be realizing that. And then on the other hand, you've got the devs who specifically, or not necessarily the devs, but like the publishers who specifically do want that because they don't want to shell out the money for putting everything on the disc or putting everything on the cartridge.
Right, but what I'm saying is like there is a massive difference in something that was not initially in development, or they decided late that it was going to be added in. Like, I go back to the Smash Brothers example all the time with this point. It's, they didn't have certain DLC characters in development at the time of release, but they wanted to expand the life of the game, and they said, hey, we have these characters coming down the pipe. They were honest about it, and they were upfront about it, because they knew they were going to probably be a little bit late. Maybe getting the rights to the character didn't coincide to when the game was going to release, and they had to make do. And then when they got the rights, they said, hey, we're going to bring this in. Like, Sephiroth and Minecraft and all these other, second DLC pass that they did. There is a massive difference in being upfront about, like, hey, we don't have this in the game, but we're going to. We're just in the development cycle of it, or there's, XYZ reasons why we haven't gotten it. We're still working on things. Versus, oh, by the way, we're going to charge you nickel and dime for XYZ content, despite this is already in the game. Like, I might be wrong on this, but there is a specific example that I remember hearing about I think it was Street Fighter Cross Tekken, I want to say.
Yep, that's the
Where,
famous on disc DLC game.
yes, that's what I'm talking about, is that you, as a company, do not get to lock stuff in on a disc just because you can. If it is on the disc, if we are paying money for it as consumers, that should be available. Even if it's like unlockable. That is on the game where I don't have to play, or excuse me, I don't have to pay for it, but I have to play and actually put in some time in order to get it. That's where I am kind of more frustrated about this whole thing, is that like, where at that point then is where the, like, does it end? We can't sit here and get to a point where like we're gonna pay $60 for a game that was announced, and then we have to pay another $60 for when it comes out, because that very well could be an option if we let it. Like, is it an overreaction from me? Sure, I will be upfront about that, but it's not off the table either. These companies know that the way that people have to play games is that they are wanting to make sure that these people play it day in and day out. That's why we have the whole daily missions ideas with some games, we have battle passes, we have all this other stuff, and it sucks for me personally, because I do not have the time to push all of this time into a singular game. I would prefer having a game that is a complete package for $60 out of the box, or whatever it might be at this point. Maybe it's 70, maybe it's higher, I don't know. But if the full game is on there, pre-DLC that they may be developing, and if I can go back to that game like once every year, maybe 2 times like a year or something like that, that's worth it in my book. Time has to also match what you're paying too. And that's why I think a lot of people, when they do these like games like, Helldivers 2, League of Legends, things that have like content that keeps kind of funneling down the pipeline every so often, and now Marvel Rivals being a big one, I think it's frustrating, because it's like we're basically paying to have all this time skipped in order to get this content. And that's fine. I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with that decision. If you have the money to do it and you don't want to miss out, that's your prerogative. But like, I don't think it's fair to have a game that is coming out in parts. Like when it was like Telltale, for example. Like when they were doing the whole episodic chapter games for the longest time. When they come out with the full game, I'm going to play the full game. I'm not going to play chapter 1, wait 3 months, and then play chapter 2. It doesn't pay for me to do that. And thankfully, we've kind of moved away from the whole episodic formula of that whole front. And now it's actually like you get a full sequel game that says, hey, you're, continuing the story, but you don't feel incomplete either. That's why a lot of these franchises have been so good for so long, because they give you a full experience that still allows you to play and do things as well.
Yeah, I mean, you look at like technically the Final Fantasy VII remake series is like episodic, but they're three, like the 2 games that are out so far are still like completely complete games. You feel like you've done something by the end of each one, even though it's like, oh, I only did the Midgar part of the game in the first one. Wow, I still did a lot though when you look back on it. So anyway, we could absolutely ramble on this issue in particular for a long time, but I think that's just like, that's one of my like key frustrations when we talk about things. I totally agree. I think it's fair to like, when the issue comes back up, if you want to make the new one the example, absolutely fine, no problem with that. But I think it's important that it's like, when we're talking about the issue though, still, even if you want to make that one the example, you don't want to leave the others off the hook, because we need to look at this in the whole, in context, right? Because just because the new one is there doesn't mean like they're like the initial one and they're the evil baddie. It's kind of like in the same way here. It's like the main way that I see an issue like this getting resolved, where it's like all the EULA stuff and, games now, when it's like, oh, we'll do a physical version, but it's not really a physical version. That's where you have to start getting regulation in there. And I think, like, where I see it starting, most likely, just looking back on the past, is it's probably going to start in Europe. Because we're talking about, like, if the European Union can make Apple, who is like so staunchly like, we want to keep using Lightning because it's our thing and screw every other charger out there. But if they can make them bend and finally force them to use USB-C like everyone else has been using for like almost 10 years now, if not more than 10 years in some other cases, like, then kind of like you said, so be it. Like, is it the way that I, would want this to have to be fixed? Not necessarily. I wish that the people behind these were not just always chasing after the lowest tier dollar, but it's kind of the system that we're in. And so then you have to get people who want to fix the issue to actually fix the issue. But alas, that is what it is. What a depressing way to start the episode. I hope you have a happy surprise topic for us today.
I do, and this is why it was fun for me to be just like, you know what? I'm not going to tell them what this is. So, recently, I have actually finished Dave the Diver for the first time, and it has now gone from, oh, I'm finishing the story, to it's now in cozy game territory, where I can just chill and have my stuff with my sushi restaurant and dive to my heart's content without thinking, oh, I gotta go beat this now. I just can go do this now. Now, the reason I bring this up is because that is yet another game finally off of my games list that I wanted to finish, as well as just on my Steam library. That's my 6th game of the year beaten, technically speaking. And I wanted to ask you this question in particular. Do you ever have a point when it comes to trying to go through your backlog that you burn out? And what I mean by that is, in my case specifically, I want to actively be beating as many of my games as I can, because God knows that I have way too many games that I have bought over the years, and I finally need to beat them. But that being said, I get burned out sometimes trying to go through the stuff I currently own, that I end up just buying what's new. Or what's, like, just kind of something of interest. Like, maybe it's not new, like, this year new, but, like, new to me, like, I own it, and then I start wanting to play it. Have you ever hit that point of, like, backlog burnout, as I'm calling it, where you just don't want to play anything you already own, and you want to go get yourself, like, a new game, and just play that instead?
Yes. No, I mean, I'm actually going through that right now. And honestly, I kind of go through that all the time. I would call it kind of a gamer-specific sickness. Although, in a sense, I suppose you could see that for other people. Like, I'm sure that you see this with people who like movies, when it's like, I just want to see this movie that's in the theater, even though it's also like, maybe I have however many movies saved that I still haven't seen in my streaming library, or like, oh, I bought the DVD or Blu-ray of this however many years ago and I didn't watch it either. Or like books too. I'm sure the same thing happens for books. I want to buy the new book, but it's like, I have all these other books sitting around in my library I could read. But at the same time, I think it's like, in some ways it's worse for us who play games, because for one, these are so much longer experiences than those examples that I cited. And I think there's a greater, like, between those 3 examples that we have so far, I think the one with the greatest tendency to have collectors in it is with games. Like, there are people who collect movies, there are people who, like, collect books, but I think the extent between people collecting either of those and games is like, there's a wide chasm between them. So yeah, no, I absolutely agree. But at the same time, I also think some of the flip side exists too, where it's like, I just want to play this one particular game, even though it's like an older game that I have, and screw all those other games too, So so obviously you brought up how you beat Dave the Diver, but I assume there are other games right now that kind of inspired this topic for you today.
Yeah, so the reason I bring them all up is, specifically this topic, is I've been going through my Steam library and going through like my physical libraries, and I brought this up earlier today, is that I desperately want to get a physical copy of Expedition 33. And I told myself I did not want to play the game until I beat these two games that I'm currently working on, which was Day of the Diver, and now currently Metaphor Refantasio is the other one, which I'm still very early into the game, but I'm enjoying it. And I figured a good RPG before getting into Expedition 33 would be a nice little palate cleanser in that sense, but kind of gets me ready for when I do eventually play that game. And Ash and I have both been playing this together. So we went through all of Day of the Diver together. We're going through Metaphor together right now, and we're both really enjoying it. But I was also going through my Steam library, and I noticed like, so I don't know if we've ever talked about this specifically, at how my games are categorized in my Steam library.
No, we have not. But man, this is such a perfect like dorky podcast topic to have, where it's like, this is how I categorize my games. I told
you it was gonna be good.
So how do you go about categorizing these?
So what I started doing was, because I didn't start doing this part till last year, but I put together a list of games that I have finished for the year, just to kind of see where I'm at overall with the stuff that I own on my Steam library. And if it happens to be something that I own on another system that I did beat, I'd put it in that category still, because it's like, I've beaten it on Switch, so I, can say I beat Day of the Diver on Steam. So that sort of thing. But I have two of those right now, where right now my games finished for this year, I finished 6. My games last year that I beat 17. And it's a very wide net of games, to say the least. Some of them are short, some of them are long. But overall, I did beat 17 games. I still have a games I need to finish list that is currently at 33. These are games that I know I started and put down for one reason or another that I have not gone back to go finish yet. Whether it was on Steam or a different system and I just happen to have it on here. Because like one of the ones that I have includes This is the Police, which is kind of you basically are in charge of a police department for 6 months until you retire, but you're kind of tied up into this whole underbelly situation where you are kind of forced to work with some shadier characters, and if you don't, you're not going to make retirement, basically. And it's not because you won't have money, it's because they will kill you. That's a game that I wanted to keep playing, and I've been meaning to finish, but it's the same thing now with like Day of the Diver. Another one that I know might make you mad is I have not touched the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles since I finished the second chapter, and that was in October.
Honestly, I know you just said it might make me upset. No, because when I started that game, now to be fair, there was a certain life event between finishing the first case and starting the second case that happened for me that kind of turned me off of the game for a bit. But then, even then, after finishing the second case, I just could not be bothered to start the third case. Honestly, because I played the second one while I was in my last year of college. I don't think I started the third case of that game until after I got out of college and I'm working the job I'm working now. So that was a long time. So I don't blame you at all.
So right now I also have a couple other ones. I have a games I have finished list, which is just every game that I have in my Steam library that I know I've beaten, whether it's been on here or other systems. And I have about 56 right now off of that, which is honestly shocking to me for some reason. I feel like it should be lower or higher. I don't know yet. I also have one that is I want to 100% the game on Steam, which I have currently 12 of those right now. And that's more for achievement hunting and games that I was like so genuinely enjoying that I wanted to go back and try to finish those at some point. And like there's some very interesting picks on here. I have like Backyard Baseball 97 still on here. Curse to Golf, which I have like 1 or 2 achievements I'm still missing on. Ghost Trick Phantom Detective, Woo! Dave the Diver, Hi-Fi Rush, Grifflands, Hades, like the Remnant games, both 1 and 2. Like I have a lot of games that I do want to do at some point. And then I have like an in general games to play next category. And it kind of crosses into some of the other ones. But these are games that it's like, okay, I have these games, and I definitely have them kind of higher on my list of priority of what I genuinely want to play. Like, I have Power Wash Simulator. I'm currently playing that on PS4 right now, so that is a game that I have under games I need to finish rather than games to play next kind of thing. So there's been kind of this whole like trying to piece a lot of this together and figure out like what is it that I genuinely want to be playing right this minute, you know? And it can be a lot, I'll be honest.
Yeah, see, I think it's interesting because I tend to find we're kind of like two sides of the same coin here in a sense. You're very particular about like you have these sorted out. This is what I want to play. This is what I need to go back to. Whereas like I'm in a lot of ways I'm the opposite because I very very much dislike playing a game out of obligation. And while I'm not saying that's what you're doing, I fear if I were to do something like that, that's what I would start to get into. And I kind of had that a bit between the start or between like the middle end-ish of last year and now with a lot of the Mario RPGs, right? I remember in our first episode together, I believe, or it might be the second one we did when we did the like wrap-up talking about playing the original Paper Mario and playing Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga. And Paper Mario I finished because I genuinely wanted to finish it, even though I didn't totally love it by the end. Whereas with Superstar Saga, my goal was to beat that before Brothership came out. And I did, but there were definitely points in the game where it's like I'm playing this and it's like, oh man, I want to be playing a different game instead of this, but like I want to play it before this game comes out. And while I still enjoyed the game perfectly fine, I'm sure that part of my opinion on it in terms of like, well, it wasn't as funny as I think some people think it is. I think this and that and the other thing, you know, whatever I said about it in those episodes, or I guess in that single episode, is somewhat colored by the fact that I was playing the game, even though it's like I'd really rather be playing something else. And ironically, it's kind of continued with those same particular subset of games because I've found myself between then and now just thinking like, God, I just want to play the Thousand Year Door remake. God, I just want to play Mario RPG. But I've already sunk 20 hours into Brothership, so it's like when I look at like how long the Thousand Year Door is and I look at how long Brothership is, and they're kind of like relatively similar length is what I've read from How Long to Beat. And it's like, well, do I start another game even though I want to play it, or do I finish the one that I've already sunk this time into? And so I was doing it where it's like I'm going to keep plodding along in this, and then I was just like, I can't do it anymore. I'm too like I'm not interested in this right now. But there will come a time, if I could put the right consonants in the sentence where they belong, where I will be like, you know what? I feel like playing Brothership again. And then I'm going to play it, and then I'm going to be happier with it. So, and it's like, I don't categorize things like this. I just kind of like see where my mood is. And then the problem is like, as a result, then you get to where it's like, well, I'm just kind of playing the same game over and over again, or, you know, I'm playing this game that I've already finished before, or this one that's like, you know, replayable, like, you know, your sports games, your racing games, stuff that doesn't necessarily have an end, quote unquote. And it's like, well, now I'm having all these other games sit by the wayside, or continue to sit by the wayside for years on end. And in some ways I feel guilty about that. In other ways it's just like, well, this is supposed to be a hobby where I'm, you know, enjoying myself in it, right? So why would I force myself to play something that I don't necessarily want to play right now? Because then what's the point? That's kind of the exact opposite of the point, in a sense.
So I do agree with the sentiment that you have, like, to kind of preface this. My thing is that if there's a point with a game where you're not enjoying it right now, it's okay to take a step back from it and go play something else. Whether it's a comfort game or if it's, you know, something that, like, has more interest to you. And part of the reason I did this style of like reorganizing my Steam library was actually because I had so many games. Like, to kind of put it into context, I have over 400 games on my Steam library alone, not counting physical stuff that I have. So I probably have closer to, like, I would guess maybe like minimum 600 games. And I am playing a very risky game of trying to beat everything in one go. And I may not do it. And I'm fully aware of that, realistic part. Like, I'm going to still try to beat what I can. And there are ways that I can play some of these games on another system. So it's like I'm not doing it all on Steam. I have some games that I've definitely doubled up on for one reason or another. Like, there are things that are going to make it easier for me in the long run when I really sit down and think about it. Like, that's part of the reason, like, I have the list for games that I need to finish, which were, ones I started at some point on a system, whether it was Steam or PlayStation 4 or whatever, and I just said, okay, I need to sit down and actually finish this game. I've put in a good amount of time, and, like, you want to see it to the end. Like, that's how I want to see it. I'm not saying I have to 100% it. I just need to finish it, and then I can say, all right, this is done. I can move on. I don't have to do anything more with it. And that was kind of the reason, like, I put together a list of stuff that I wanted to for sure beat this year. Because I looked at some of these games and I'm like, oh, that's going to be really cool. That's going to be really fun. That's going to be really fun. Or, like, there's some even games that are, like, they're shorter than they probably actually need to be. And I'm like, I could easily beat these in, like, a weekend and just knock those out of the way. So I think the way that my mentality came about trying to organize it was to kind of give myself a priority list in a way. Because it's like, okay, this is a game that I should have probably played a long time ago. Better late than never. Or, oh, this seemed really interesting. I really want to play this. Like, I mean, in my games to beat this year list, here's my 14 right now that I have. And I will give you time to process a lot of these. In order: Cassette Beasts, Dredge, Eastward, Fallout New Vegas, The Great Ace Attorney Chronicles, The Henry Stickmin Collection, In Stars and Time, Journey, Kindergarten, The Lamplighters League, Okami, Persona 3 Reload, Persona 4 Golden, and Sifu.
That is an eclectic list of games, but at the same time, even though they're all, like, very different, they all just kind of make sense together at the same time. To me, the thing that really sticks out about them is, like, when you have the really short games and the really long games. Like, I'm looking at it and it's like, it's May 16th today of 2025, and it could honestly take the rest of the year just to beat Persona 3, and yet you want to do that and Persona 4 and, a bunch of other, like, RPG-like games on there too. And so, as much as, like, I think it's a good goal. It's perfectly fine to have that as a goal. But, like, I guess maybe my brain is just infected by having, the SMART goal, as they say, mentality in my brain, where it's like, I start to think, like, oh my gosh, is that a realistic goal? Like, it's not a bad goal, but is it a realistic goal? Can you do it by the end of the year? I'm not saying you can't. I could be proven wrong, but it just seems like a tall task.
It can be. It definitely can be. I think it's like that's part of the reason why I was trying to give myself this year breaking down my games to be like, try to beat 12 a year. That's one game a month. And I am much further along in it than I was expecting to be. Because I was thinking, let's see here. So, of the games beaten this year, I have beaten 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Dave the Diver is my 9th game I've beaten this year. So I'm already 3 away from meeting my criteria, and I am 8 away from beating last year's. And I probably will have a good chance of beating it if I go through the Henry Stickmin collection, because that is like 5 games in its own. I mean, they're all short, so I don't know if I really count that as 5 separate ones and just count that as one whole thing, but I digress on that one. Like, it is probably doable what I was trying to get to, especially this year. I don't know. I guess what I was more interested on the topic on was, like, what do you do to kind of get yourself out of that backlog burnout? Like, we kind of talked about what I try to do, which is try to kind of give myself, like, here's my criteria of what I'm trying to beat and be able to, enjoy what I'm doing. but still giving myself like, some level of like of a game plan for what I'm trying to do and beat.
Well, see, and that's the problem, is I don't know that I can really give you a good or maybe like a satisfying answer to that question, because I'm just going to play what I want to play. Like, the way that my mind works when it comes to the games here is like, I'll see something and I'll be like, oh man, I haven't touched that game in a while. Like, I haven't, thought about it in however long. And I'll be like, I should play that. And then it's going to go in one of two directions. It's either going to be like continually filed under like I should go back to that. Or it's going to be actually filed under the, man, I really, 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 really do want to play this. And then I will play it like right then and there. And it just kind of has to go like wherever my heart wants to go at the time. Like when I, at the end of 2023, picked up Hotel Dusk, it was because I was thinking about it. It's like, that's the game I just want to play right now. Like, I could not get out of my head after, like, hearing and seeing all the good things people said about it. And it's like, it's in a genre that I like. So it's like, I just couldn't get it out of my brain. So I had to play it, and I did it, and I was happy. And then I was totally fine. But then at the same time, I've had, like, kind of in the back of my brain as well, thinking about, like, I should play other games that I've just had for a long time. I should play, it's a good example when I look at my shelf over here. I should finish Dragon Quest II, because I started it in 2022, and I still haven't beaten it, and I'd sure love to play 3, and I'd love to play 4, but, like, do I really want to play 3 or 4 without having beaten 2? So it's like I constantly think about it, but then it just never happens until eventually the day will come where it will happen. And, I'm not saying that day is going to be today, but, like, it's going to happen, and when it happens to be getting around to, it'll have to be what it is. It's, again, one of the irrational things about this particular hobby is, people definitely own more games than they will probably ever beat in their entire lifetime just with what they have now, before they even buy more stuff, more games, So it's irrational, but if it makes people happy, who am I to tell them what to do?
Well, right, and I think that's a big deal when it comes to, like, your personal tastes better than anyone as a gamer. Like, if you're gonna play a certain game, it may take a little while before you get there, that's okay. As long as you are actively able to say, hey, we're going to have time to play this game, this is what we're gonna play now. Like, for example, one of these games that I just bought back in February is a game called Forgive Me, Father. It is a Lovecraftian first-person shooter. Do I know when I'm going to play that game? No. Does it sound rad as hell? Absolutely. Like, I know as a person I'm going to play it. When, I don't know. Kind of going back to what my personal viewpoints are on how I handle it, I try to do my best to be like, okay, I am setting a list aside for games that I know I'm going to play or want to play, like, as a priority. And then once that list is done, go through the list again and see what's just kind of tripping my trigger. And, what you kind of mentioned before, there's nothing wrong with going back to comfort games or games that you've played previously. Like, I do a yearly playthrough of the Pokemon games, like one of them usually a year. It doesn't matter if I've beaten it or not, like 40 times or not. But I still will want to go back to that at some point. Like, I'm still in the process of trying to beat Power Wash Simulator, and I don't know if I'm going to actively beat that. I'm probably going to, realistically, but just kind of to illustrate the point. And I think the other problem, too, with some of the games, for me at least, that I own, is I have a whole category of games that is just for multiplayer purposes. That is what really sucks in my case. Because I don't have a lot of friends that play the same games as I do, as I used to back in college. When I would play, 5-man teams of League, and we would just go until 3 a.m., basically. But, like, now, it's like, if I want to play a multiplayer game, I hope to God I have people who will play with me, because I will probably not play it otherwise, and that's kind of the sad thing.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way with some particular games. Like, I bought in 23, I believe, is when it came out. Yeah, no, it had to be 23. I bought the re-release of Dokapon Kingdom. Well, I could totally play that by myself, but like, I think part of the fun of that game is that it's a multiplayer board game RPG. So, like, what I would, in my ideal world, if I controlled everything in the way that I wanted it to be, how would I do this? I would love to have a 4-player party of, like, myself, whomever my, romantic significant other would be at the time, and then, like, I just need 2 other people. So honestly, probably like, a couple friend that we have. And that'd be how I'd want to play it, because it's like a long burn game too, because it's an RPG. So, but like, that's a lot of setup to get there. There's a lot of life setup to get there before you even get into playing the game itself. So, a lot of that multiplayer stuff, that's why I love with so many multiplayer games. Like, I remember, I don't know what it is. Like, I've been on a humongous Mario kick in particular this year. I don't know if it's because the series is turning 40, so it's just on my brain or whatever the issue is. I've also said brain a lot in this episode. Observations aside, I remember like when Mario Maker 2 came out and it had its multiplayer, and people are like, what the heck? I can't play with friends. And that was a huge deal. And I agree that was a huge deal. It was really dumb that it had to be added in an update. Like, come on, are you for real? But at the same time, for me, it's like, I don't know anyone who's going to pick up this game other than me. So the fact that I could just play with randos online, I don't care. But that's just for me. So I love having the ability to play with randos online, because that allows me to play multiplayer stuff way more than I ever would. But at the same time, kind of like you said, it's like, it's way more endearing, it's way more charming, it's way more fun to have those people in the room, or have that consistent group to play with. And it definitely makes the multiplayer games, in a sense, harder to check off the backlog if you're like looking for that specific group, because there's just all that setup that has to go into it.
Oh, yeah. And for me, so we got a PS5 recently, like maybe a few weeks ago. And one of the games we got for it was Split Fiction, which is already like being dubbed as like the best co-op game by that developer. They're the same ones who did It Takes Two, A Way Out, Brothers. Like, they're really good at this type of game. And, I want to play that with Ash. And it will be one of those days of, hey, this is going to be really fun to do. But we got to find time for it. And that's always, as an adult, the hardest part, when you can't really commit to games like you used to, like even when you were in college. Because you could just, turn your brain off, or you didn't care who you were playing with at the time. As I get older, I find myself, it's like I would rather share those experiences more with like Ash, or, some friends that happen to have the game too, so we can all play together. Like, if there was a game that you and I could play, I would absolutely play it at some point. I just don't know what we would be matching in on that front, but that might be a different topic for a different day.
Yeah, another one of those things where it's like it's a lot of setup, because like you said, you gotta find what works, and it's not gonna work for everyone, It could take time to figure that out.
And it kind of goes back to what we were talking about before. It's not every single person has that same, list of games that they're all interested in. And that's fine. I don't think that's inherently wrong. It's just, you got to kind of find out what it is. I mean, it's part of the reason I've been very, very specific on trying to avoid, buying too many games in one go. Because if I do that, I'm going to just keep compiling and not get anywhere after a while. When I'm literally sitting there going, oh, I needed to, beat this. And, like, part of it is, too, that my games that I bought, like I have on my Steam wish list, some of them aren't because I plan to get them on Steam. It's more just like sometimes a list also of things that I'm like, okay, I plan to get this at some point. I just need to know when I'm going to get it and call it a day. I don't know. There's a lot of factors that definitely go into it. Like, and there have been a lot of cool games to come, especially in the last few years, I think. Like, in the last 5 alone, it's been insanely good timing for a lot of games to just come out of the wild. And now I'm like trying my best to be like, okay, I need to really start playing some of this. really mad.
Yeah, I also, this is kind of like a very specific use case in a sense too. But I think when you get into either the couple or the family dynamic, that can also play a very special role in what you play too. Obviously, I don't have a full 4-person family of my own, but like I remember, when I'm a kid, it wasn't like whatever was on being played on the TV was necessarily my decision. But it's like, well, I still want to play a game, so it's like, okay, maybe I don't want to play, Tiger Woods PGA Tour 2008, but that's what my dad wants to play, and that's what's on the TV, so I guess that's what I'm going to be going with, right? And I still had fun. It wasn't exactly like, absolutely, this is what I want to play, but I enjoyed it. I still had a good time. I remember, like, when I was in my previous relationship, there would be times where it's like, I'd just be like, when you look at this list, what do you want to play? And then it wouldn't necessarily be like absolutely the game that I want to be playing, but we'd still get some good experiences too, right? I mean, this is just like however many years in the past. I can't remember specific stories of like, well, she was interested in playing this, and I was like, okay, and that's what it was, because it could very well be at the time that it's like I wanted to play it too, but I just think, like, theoretically speaking, that's another example of how this works too, is like the things that you want to play could also be just totally influenced more like by what someone else wants to play, and you get a good experience out of it just because, like, you're having fun with another person, whether it's like you're playing multiplayer together or it's like you're, when it comes to like those very story-driven type games, I love, the dramatic side of me comes out, and I want to like sort of play these and almost be like the radio play for that person in a sense. So, where do we go from here now? I'm trying to think if there's any other stuff to go with this. This was your topics. I don't know if you have the next direction for it, perhaps.
Well, I probably can round it out with one last question. And the first one is, what is the next game on your docket for your backlog? For you personally? Like, that you aren't currently playing right now, where you're just like, all right, once this is done, this is what I'm going into next, kind of thing.
That is a difficult question. Because, like I said, it's really going to depend on what I want to play at the time. I definitely, like I said, I have lying in the back of my head the little birdie that's going, you gotta beat Mario and Luigi. You gotta beat Mario and Luigi. And I'm like, I mean, I do. But do I have to? When I look at some of my older stuff, I look at like, you gotta beat Klonoa 1 and 2.
I do, but I don't have that right now. But
well, I have the PS2 for 2, and I have the Wii version of 1, and then I have the remakes of both. So really, I've got a lot of options with it. But it's like, I haven't found myself sitting down at the point where I'm just like, God, I just want to play Klonoa, and until that day happens, I'm not doing it. You gotta, to use another Namco example, you gotta beat Pac-Man World. Well, yeah, I am really close to beating it, but until I hit the day where I'm just like, God, I gotta beat Pac-Man World, like where that becomes the forefront thought, it's just not happening. So that's kind of what I'm saying here, is it's like I have a lot of in the back of my brain games to beat. I don't have right now a game that's like at the forefront of like, this is the one I need to beat, which makes a tough question when you want a specific answer for it.
See, I think that's kind of the difference between you and me, is like, I've already kind of got an idea of the 2 games that I want to move on to next. And I think for me, it's going to be, for a shorter game, I'm going to do Journey next. Because I've heard amazing things about Journey.
PS3 classic.
And, well, I have it on Steam, so I'll be playing it on that. I don't remember if I actually own it on PS3. I'll have to look again. And then my other one that I'm looking at starting is called Eastward, which is a very reminiscent to Earthbound type of RPG. So I'm very excited to try that, and I have it for Switch, so I'm probably going to play it on there when I get a chance. Because lately I've been actually really enjoying going back to console gaming. So we'll see where it kind of gets us on that one. But I think those are the top two that I'm looking at once I finish Metaphor, I think is my big one. Like, I might play Journey in between here and there, but Metaphor is kind of the big one right now that I want to finish.
A little bit ironic that you're saying, like, you're getting really back into console gaming, considering where this conversation for us started, when it's just like, it's this whole cesspool we have here, but it's just like, it's still fun,
yes,
you know?
Yes, but you also forget it, just how many I have when it comes to consoles.
I know. And that's kind of the problem here, is it's just like, you kind of got to know what you're getting into with them. You'd have to take the good with the bad, yet again, if I can borrow a tired phrase that I've used numerous times on this show.
Yeah, I won't stop you.
So...
But yeah, I think the other thing that I'm probably going to try to get into is I have a couple of buddies who I think are very big Remnant fans. One of them definitely is. I don't remember if his wife is. But I was actually going to message him and be like, hey, do you want to do Remnant 2 run? Because I have so much of that game that I have not beaten, and I would absolutely love for an excuse to get it on PS5.
But see, that's again kind of the difference between you and me, I suppose, is it's like you're looking for an excuse to get it, whereas it's just like, if I want to play it, I'm going to find a way to play it eventually, you know? So...
I mean, I can play it. I have it on Steam. I'm just saying, like, because he has it on PS5.
Oh, I gotcha. Double dipping.
And it is also... Yeah, it's also one of those games that I would absolutely be fine with double dipping on. I mean, I own 3 copies of Hades on different platforms, so I can't really say that I would be so inclined to not buy it a second time or something like that.
All right.
But yeah, that's all I had for the episode this week. So, in a unexpected short episode,
in a hyper short episode compared to most, believe it or not, when I did do this on my own, I believe I did have at least one sub-hour episode at some point. I'm trying to remember which one that was. I got really close with which one was it? Because I'm looking through the list right now. I got really close with 22. That was only an hour 12. So by all means, like, we could be setting a new record here right now.
Yeah. All right. Well, I say that's a good place to call it for the day.
Alrighty then. Well, everyone who's listened in, you've seen the ups and downs. This kind of in a similar way was a little bit of a roller coaster of an episode. We started something that we're both mad about, something as well that we're both like, you know, reflecting on, contemplative about. And if you enjoyed this topic, I would love to know that you did as well. You could leave that in the form of a comment. Those are available on YouTube and Spotify, and probably on some other platforms as well. You could always send us a voice message. That is at the link speakpipe.com/endless conversation loop. That is included as well in the episode description. Yeah, and if you want to do other stuff, subscriptions, liking things, that's great. That's what makes the internet go round. Otherwise, I think we're ready to sign out.
All right, this is Boom.
And this is Brandon, having ended off for the first time as we've been doing this. Thank you for listening, everyone.